This is the Nokia 5800 Xpress Music, and in 2008 this thing was selling like hotcakes. Of course this isn't the original box that the device usually comes in, but this is what I got when I ordered it from eBay as a refurbished unit. And I believe the unit on this box is the navigation edition of the phone. So what made the 5800 so special? Let's talk about all of its quirks and features and its issues for the time. I actually had to order this phone twice as the first version I got off eBay had a bad battery. But that also means that I now have two of them. One in red and one in blue. For the time being, let's start with the hardware. The 5800 was the first mainstream Nokia device to come with a touchscreen, and it came with a 3.2-inch TFT display and used resistive touch technology. What this meant was the device responded to pressure put on the display and not on touch alone. Over the display is a small notification light which is right under the front-facing camera. And at the bottom were three physical hardware keys, with the menu key being in the center. On the right you had the volume rocker keys, the slider to lock and unlock the device, and a camera shutter key. And on the left you just had flaps to access the memory card slot and the SIM card slot, and this phone supported a mini SIM. The top housed a micro USB port which was hidden under a flap, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and Nokia's charging pinhole, as well as the power button. And the bottom only housed the opening to remove the back plate. The whole device is made out of plastic, which was the norm back then, with the edges having a glossy finish. The back of the 5800 is very utilitarian. It's still made out of plastic, but it had a rubbery finish and a pretty cool pattern to it as well. And the back housed a 3.15 megapixel camera with Carl Zeiss optics and dual LED flash, a dual speaker setup which was cleverly integrated into the side, and a stylus which was the best way to interact with the resistive touchscreen. Under the removable back is a 1320 mAh battery. Which of these two color options do you prefer? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now moving on to the software, this is the first device to come with Symbian S60 version 5, which was the first version of S60 that's optimized for touchscreens. There's only one main home screen which had some basic customization, so you could adjust the kind of shortcuts that you want or select between three different themes. You have the contacts bar, the basic setup which only had the dialer and the contacts at the bottom, and the shortcut bar, which displayed your shortcuts at the top with the dialer and the contacts again at the bottom. From here you can access the menu by pressing the physical button, and the menu only displayed one screen with all the additional stuff hidden under the applications. So you can see the calendar, contacts, the log, web browser, messaging, gallery, Ovi Store, which was the app store, the music player, Nokia Maps, the settings, help, and applications from here. And you can change the menu from a grid to a list, if that's your type of thing. In applications, you had a file manager, calculator, a converter, instant messaging, a clock, a voice recorder, a real player, location, the iconic bounce game, a racing game, notes, phone setup, My Nokia, setup wizard, camera, video center, switch, Ovi Sync, dictionary, software updates, and quick office, as well as the accessibility setup. Symbian was always quite feature-rich, and S60 version 5 was no different. Pretty much have settings to play around with whatever you wanted. And the operating system even supported multitasking, so you could switch between open applications. Although sadly S60 version 5 was never really that smooth, and the user experience was pretty inconsistent. The first version of the software also didn't allow you to scroll without pressing on the scroll bar, which is a very old-fashioned way of scrolling. Let's have a look at the iconic bounce game. So what were the issues with the Nokia 5800? For a start, the App Store was pretty weak, especially compared to the one found on iOS back then, so the app selection was always kind of lacking. The phone for some reason didn't charge from the micro USB port, so you had to use Nokia's proprietary charging pinhole. The web browsing experience on Symbian was pretty weak, especially when it comes to smoothness and speed. Despite all of its credentials, the camera performance was mediocre at best. The S60 user experience was pretty inconsistent, so in some areas, one press would do the job. In others, you needed to double press. Why is it like that? God knows. The keyboard experience on this device just wasn't that great, and there was no support for multi-touch. So you had to rely on the old school T9 setup on a touchscreen, or use a very small QWERTY keyboard that was just very uncomfortable and not that great to use. Although one nice touch was you could use handwriting in order to type. But even that never worked that reliably, to be honest. I also think that Nokia insisting on using a resistive touchscreen when the iPhone was using a capacitive one is a baffling decision. Perhaps they thought it's more practical depending on where you are, as you can still use this with gloves? Maybe. Anyway, despite this being a hot seller, which the Nokia brand name alone was enough to achieve back in those days, the 5800 just wasn't a great first step into the touchscreen realm. Symbian's transition into touchscreens wasn't a smooth one, and the OS felt more like a touchscreen wrapper applied to an aging user interface, which resulted in an inconsistent user experience. Maybe it's too harsh to attribute the demise of Symbian to the 5800, but Nokia played it way too safe with the S60 version 5 at a time when the competition was taking leaps and bounds in trying to improve how we interact with our phones. Having said that, the 5800 Xpress Music is definitely an iconic device in the brand's history and one for the collectors among you. What do you guys think of the 5800? Did you own it? Do you remember it fondly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this nostalgia trip, check out my other nostalgia videos. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.